rumors are being spread about the superhero known as Spider-Man. It's Saturday, September 10, 2022, and I have a special one-shot for you today called Spider-Man the Official Comic Adaptation from 2002. I'm Joe Getcho, and this is Spidey Joe's One-Shots. Stay tuned.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thief just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
The comic adaptation of the story today was written by Spider-Man co-creator himself, Stan Lee. The credits page also includes a screenwriter for the movie, David Koepp, the penciler, Alan Davis, and includes a special thanks to Brian Michael Bendis. Spider-Man was seen sticking to a wall, monologuing about his life, how it's not for the faint of the heart or the squeamish. Now there's a small flashback to when he first arrived with his aunt and uncle. I do like seeing this because it gives you just the tiniest bit of additional backstory so that you know that he, like many other of the superheroes, they don't have their biological parents with them anymore. At the local high school, Norman Osborn, CEO of Oscorp, he was seen talking to his son, Harry Osborn, and he was with another teen named Peter Parker, who's apparently studying to become a scientist.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
The pacing here seems to be in fast forward, where we move quickly through the field trip and the cute moments between bumbling Peter Parker googling over MJ. From there, we see the spider appear in the same way to deliver the fateful bite that turns Peter Parker into Spider-Man, and quickly jump over to Oscorp to see the military giving Norman an ultimatum on his performance enhancers.
Your so-called performance enhancers have not had a successful human trial by that date. I'm going to pull your funding.
Then back to Peter, where we see some big changes taking place, and then we jump to him premature webbing all over the high school cafeteria. And then he accidentally dumps a tray with food on top of the head of Flash Thompson, to which Flash replies,
"My fist breaking your teeth, that's the accident."
Doesn't he kind of look like the Sandman here? Or is it just me? I also like that MJ is in the background laughing. That was funny. Even though the beginning of the book goes by quickly, we have here the first page where we get some of Stan's extra quirky dialogue. Peter's internal monologue really helps show what he's going through, and the comments from the spectators help show how much of advantage Peter now has over Flash. We then zip and thwip to the scene where Peter starts crawling up walls and learns to web sling much more quickly than in the movie. And then, ladies and gentlemen, some of the art gets very interesting in this book, and I'm really glad this shot in particular was not in the movie. Peter experiments with webbing and he scares his aunt, while Norman becomes the first human test subject. Norman goes through his transformation, but in the comic it looks like the explosion kills Dr. Strom, which is more of an accident than what happened in the movie, where Norman totally killed him.
Back to formula.
Norman finds himself at home, not sure of how he got there, and just like the movie, finds out Dr. Strom is dead, although in the comic, he has not been murdered. Peter gets in Sam Raimi's iconic 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88. But there's some really nice dialogue here where Ben says Peter is smart, smarter than Ben will ever be, and the world is waiting to see what he will do with this power. And then, of course, you can't have a Spider-Man comic without the iconic line,
"With great power comes great responsibility."
But we also get some inner dialogue where Peter starts to instantly regret snapping at Ben. I think this helps to lower the angst level so that he's not just angry all the time, but he really starts to get the impact of what he did. Bonesaw shows up, of course, but the comic lacks the theatrical take on the wrestling match that was in the movie. But fortunately, the comic fixes that outdated 90s reference that was used in the movie.
That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
Now that just may be my opinion, but I really like how the fight sequence plays out in the comic better than it did in the movie. In the comic, he's got a lot more quips, he also dodges a lot, which is really cool, and he doesn't get blindsided by a chair like his Spidey sense suddenly doesn't work anymore. So from here, the events in the comic pretty well match the movie, where Peter tries to collect his cash money, he doesn't get all of it, he lets the guy escape, the guy kills Uncle Ben, he goes after the guy, he confronts him in the warehouse, but there's a great little highlight panel of what happened previously, and it really gives you Peter's guilt that he's feeling, in only the way that a comic panel could. And then once again, the comic is a little less severe in that Peter actually doesn't nudge the guy out the window to his death, but he actually is backing up away from Spider-Man because he's scared and he trips himself. I do kind of like that the comic version makes Peter out to be less of a killer, but at the same time I realize that this wouldn't work with what they did in No Way Home.
I hunted down the man who I thought did it. I wanted him dead. I got what I wanted. It didn't make it better.
Just like in the movie, in the comic, Peter becomes known as the hero Spider-Man, and he goes and he saves people, because that's what a hero does.
Yes. Spider-Man was a hero.
And then, ladies and gentlemen, we have the conflict at the World Unity Fair, where the comic does a really nice job of adding some additional quips and additional dialogue and internal monologue that really make the fight sequences flow a lot better like you would expect in a Spider-Man comic. Unfortunately, they didn't do this in the movie, but it's still a really spectacular or amazing, whichever word you prefer, it's still a really great fight sequence.
Impressive!
And then our story in the comic ends with Peter saving MJ and swinging off into the night with a message that says, be sure to see the Spider-Man, the movie DVD in stores November 1st. So we don't really get a full comic book adaptation of the movie, which is really interesting, but I think it's because this came out before the movie, so they didn't want to spoil the entire movie in the comic ahead of time. Why they didn't come back and do it again, I can't say. But what I can say is, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Spidey Joe's One-Shots. And that's a wrap. Make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell to receive updates on new episodes of Spidey Joe's One-Shots. And check out bonelesscomicspodcast.com, where you can listen to our episodes and after shows and more from the podcast We Like Comics Because They Have No Bones. Also, we have an Amazon store where you can purchase any of the comics that you have enjoyed in these episodes. You can also find us on social media at Boneless Comics Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and at Boneless Comics 1 on Twitter. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you later.